Germany. Challenges in the German educational system. Because of its well-structured and tough educational system, Germany is regarded for having exceptionally high academic standards. Students are rigorously assessed at each stage of their education, to the point where if a student fails to meet the required minimum grades in 2 or more classes, he or she must repeat the entire year to ensure that they always meet the requirements to advance to the next class level. The German educational institution is notable for its strong job stability, free qualified educators, low youth unemployment figures, classes that are tailored to the kids' learning styles, and positive manual labor. Germany, on the other hand, continues to have problems with its educational system. Structure of schooling system. Germany have three-tiered system for secondary education that ranks students by their ability after finishing elementary school. This system then determines whether students will have access to higher education or not. Its education system separates students by their educational abilities, and the tracking starts since 4th grade, which is way too early. Furthermore, its dual-track educational system divides pupils into those who are regarded qualified for higher education and others who are funneled to vocational schools after finishing 10 years of school, resulting in inequalities. As a result, many German students drop out of school and are instead placed in job preparation programs rather than vocational training programs. Differences in students' learning and grading techniques, as well as varying tracking recommendations from their elementary school teachers, contribute to educational challenges in Germany. In Germany, a child's academic performance is intimately tied to their parents' backgrounds, with immigrants and their offspring being disproportionately affected by structural inequality. Inequality in German educational system is a well-known issue. Studies have shown for decades that pupils from more privileged socioeconomic backgrounds routinely outperform their peers, even when they have similar cognitive aptitude. These children are more likely to be recommended for the top educational tracks in the country and to enter university. The educational system is confronted by the challenge of creating equal opportunity for individuals with different backgrounds. Immigrant students and students from lower income households are also less likely to advance in their education, as education in rural areas of Germany lags behind that in cities. German schooling has also been chastised for creating huge divides in educational opportunity between children from affluent families and disadvantaged children or children from immigrant families. Children from migrant families are also 4 times more likely to be affected by social, financial, and educational risk factors, with students from Western or Northern European countries having a higher probability of having a university degree than students from Eastern Europe or Turkey. Migrant children in Germany attend Hauptschule twice as often as those from similar socio-economic backgrounds. Despite some progress, migrant children remain underrepresented in the highest level gymnasiums. In short, the German educational system fails to assist pupils in overcoming disadvantage and marginalization as a result of their background, including ethnic and religious minority. Challenges of studying in Germany: facing institutional heterogeneity. German universities always do their best to provide you with all the support you need. However, the degree of support varies depending on each university's staffing level. For this reason, you can't expect that your university is able to support you in every situation at any time. Also, universities are finding ways to exploit inner and outer support so that students can benefit the most from their service. This outsourcing of support gives rise to a new problem, which is high-level bureaucracy and a shortage of relevant information. Getting used to homesickness and independent lifestyle. A survey about the impact of studying overseas on mental health. Half of the participants reported a phase of feeling homesick throughout their stay. They tend to call home more frequently and expect friends to be online on Facebook. However, it is only counterproductive in the long run. Feeling spiritually dry. You can't avoid feeling lost when living in a new community which can satisfy all your emotional needs. You can be at a loss as to the joke everybody else is laughing at. Sometimes, you also feel unconnected with the new environment, which is tiring at first unless you get the hang of new cultural norms. Early childhood education staffing under enormous stress. Education unions in Germany have asked public authorities to better recognize the role played by early childhood educators during the COVID-19 pandemic. They asked for increased resources for staffing and funding in the Kita, early childhood education schools. In Germany, we can count ourselves lucky that educators in this country have excellent professional qualifications and do their job with conviction and motivation. However, if the people who have already achieved enormous things before the coronavirus pandemic and are doing even more in the current situation, and this includes daycare specialists, without a doubt, are let down by politics. It is terrible not only for them, but also for the children and the future of our society as a whole. All curricular frameworks define learning areas, but no learning goals. The pedagogic principles stress the objective of promoting children to become an active and responsible member of society. Preschool groups in Germany are traditionally mixed age groups, sometimes covering the age span from 1 year of age until school enrollment. Philippines. The 2007 population census reported an enumeration 88.57 million Filipinos. about 46% are children below 18 years old. The 0 to 6 years of age represent about 18% of the total population. In 2000, the population of children 0 to 6 years old was 13.5 million. By 2010, the number is projected to increase to 17.2 million or 3.6 million more children 0 to 6 than in 2000. The magnitude and increase in this age group indicates a high dependency ratio and would entail significant additional resources needed to provide the basic needs such as food, healthcare, education. On the macro level, high population growth is tied to poverty. The challenges facing Filipino children today relate to poor health, nutrition, limited early education, and or lack of appropriate psychosocial care and stimulation, inadequate protection, and more recently, climate change. These core threats to the optimum well-being of young children have implications in granting child rights to survival, development, and protection. However, although the Philippine educational system has extensively been a model for the Southeast Asian countries, in recent years, such a model has no longer stood through, and such a system has been deteriorated. Such a fact is especially evident and true in the country's more secluded, poverty-stricken regions. Nationwide, the Philippines faces several issues when it comes to the educational system. First of which is the quality of education. Having said this, the poor quality of the Philippine educational system is manifested in the comparison of completion rates between highly urbanized city of Metro Manila, which is also happens to be not only the country's capital, but the largest metropolitan area in the Philippines, and other places in the country such as Mindanao and Eastern Visayas. This kind of statistic is no surprise to the education system in the Philippine context. Students who hail from Philippine urban areas have the financial capacity to complete, at the very least, their primary school education. The budget for education. The second issue that the Philippine educational system faces is the budget for education. Although it has been mandated by the Philippine Constitution for the government to allocate the highest proportion of its government to education, the Philippines remains to have one of the lowest budget allocations to education among Asian countries. Social divide. There exists a problematic and distinct social cleavage with regard to educational opportunities in the country. Many of the current issues teachers of early childhood education face are not new. Some of them have been around for a long time. Some new issues come from things like classroom related changes. We'll start with the most obvious problem in the field of ECE or early childhood education is the pandemic. The pandemic plunge. For years, teachers of all grades and subject areas have complained about the summer slide. That is the decline in school performance that happens when students return to school after a 3-month break. Some studies have reported this loss of learning to be as much as a quarter of all material learned during the prior school year. Teachers' concerns over the summer slide could be greater this year since the pandemic's distant learning made learning and retention even more challenging for students. While the pandemic slide may be of concern of all types of teachers, it could add a major burden to an already long list of preschool issues and problems. That's because the learning milestones that must be met during these early years of a student's academic journey are the key to their long-term success in school. Early reading goals that are not met, for example, can impact a child's reading and writing abilities for years to come. The same is true for basic skills like spatial and number, sense, as well as basic adding and subtracting. Thus, one of the main problems kindergarten and pre-kindergarten teachers face will be making sure that kids leave their classroom with the skills they need to tackle the remaining years in elementary school and beyond. Long hours and no sick days. Just like parents' work is never done, the same is true for the teachers of early childhood age children. When you consider the amount of paperwork early childhood educators are responsible on top of managing a classroom full of little ones all day, you can see why long work hours may be among the many challenges preschool teachers face today. While this is not a new problem and isn't isolated to early childhood learning, it may be one of the bigger preschool issues and problems teachers are currently facing due to federally mandated student-teacher ratios. When schools across the country turn to distance learning as a way to stay afloat during the pandemic, preschools took it especially hard. That's because so much of what we know about early learning goes against the idea that young children can learn effectively online. While distance for preschoolers in and of itself tops the list of challenges teachers face today, this problem was made worse when partway through the pandemic. Parents across the Philippines were given the choice of whether to keep their kids at home for virtual learning or send them back to school for face-to-face learning. The world is facing a learning crisis. Introduction to Norway. Education is at the center of building human capital. One big reason the learning crisis persists is that many education systems across the developing world have little information on who is learning and who is not. In today's Norwegian society, kindergartens are regarded as important by most people as well as by the government, politicians, professionals, researchers, and organizations. A number of voices critical of the environmental pedagogic policy for kindergartens have been raised on behalf of the students' need for play, from the influence of adults having educational goals. This issue is also a concern for the authorities. The Green Paper discusses how to ensure all children receive a systematic pedagogical program of high quality. Next is about staff and competence. In this section, we focus on two challenges involving the issue of quality in Norwegian kindergartens related to a nationwide shortage of kindergarten teachers as well as ratios of trained versus non-trained personnel in the kindergarten. One major challenge for today's kindergarten sector is the shortage of kindergarten teachers. This is related to the explosive growth of kindergartens during the last decade. The growth of kindergarten places, coupled with the shared belief in society at large that kindergartens are good for children, has led to today's situation where almost all children aged 1 to 5 years in Norway, or 90%, have places in daycare institutions. On the other hand, Norwegian universities and university colleges have not received funds sufficient to keep up with this growth, and they have been unable to graduate enough kindergarten teachers to meet these demands. A solution to this problem has been to make an exemption for the law requiring kindergarten teacher education of all pedagogical leaders. Consequently, there are today in Norway over 4,000 nationwide exemptions from this requirement. In cooperation with educational institutions and local municipalities, the Ministry of Education and Research has tried to deal with this situation by starting a program for workplace-based early childhood teacher education. Workplace-based studies started in 2007 and represented an innovation for gaining a degree at undergraduate and postgraduate level, using experiential knowledge gained through working with children as the basis of an individual academic study program. This 4-year part-time bachelor degree program requires that students work a minimum of 50% at their kindergarten workplaces during the course of their bachelor program. This effort, along with the standard educational programs, is slowly helping to fill the nationwide kindergarten teacher gap. However, it is legitimate to raise question whether the program goes too slowly. The second issue related to the personnel situation is the ratio of pedagogically trained staff versus untrained staff in kindergartens. The normal situation is 1 kindergarten teacher and 2 assistants per group of children.
This focus on building competence among the staff is an important issue in relation to here and now situation of the children and also with regard to the lifelong learning perspective.
The staffing situation in Norwegian kindergartens has also been discussed in the UNICEF report, The Child Care Transition. Norway meets 8 of UNICEF's 10 criteria. For example, with its length of paid maternity leave, proportion of children above the poverty line, and health services. But in regard to criteria related to caring for young children, Norwegian kindergartens receive some negative assessment compared to kindergartens in many other European countries. The Norwegian kindergarten system failed to meet the minimum requirement criteria of having at least 80% of staff members with basic training in child care. Norwegian kindergarten and to discuss some of the challenges it faces. As we have indicated, there are a number of different perspectives on the role of kindergartens in Norwegian society. We have shown that a societal perspective has been an important concern in the development of kindergartens in Norway. The kindergarten also has had a key role in policies for lifelong learning of the Norwegian welfare state. Moreover, it has been regarded as a crucial factor in the integration into Norwegian society of children and families from ethnic minorities. The last decade has witnessed a number of critical voices about the negative consequences of this benefit, especially for immigrant families. It has been pointed out that it impedes integration of ethnic minorities in Norway in many ways. This involves a number of issues. Prominent among these are the problems created when immigrant mothers stay at home and outside the labor market, as well as when their children's Norwegian language competence is hampered by staying home with their non-Norwegian speaking mothers. Many voices, including most researchers in the field, have proposed that the cash benefit funding should be used to enhance quality in kindergarten equality, since mothers stay home instead of having paid work. These were findings that cash benefits meant that Norwegian mothers are slow returning to work after giving birth, and that many women work part-time or less than a full work week for a number of years even after the cash benefit period